Hey y'all, it's Caroline. Today is my November book wrap up, so I'm going to be talking about all 11 books that I read last month and ranking them from ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite book of the month. Speaking of book of the month though, let me take a second just to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month, of course. Book of the Month is a monthly book subscription service that I've been a member of for going on like 2 years now. They're super popular. You've probably heard of them by now. They have an incredible deal going on right now where you can go ahead and sign up and get your first book for only $5. Click the link in my description box. Use the code JOLLY. First book is $5. Each month, the Book of the Month team vets hundreds of new release titles, and they come back with a curated selection of books that they think readers are going to love. And there's always something for every type of reader in these monthly selections. So if you're interested in reading more thrillers, contemporary books, romance books, sci-fi, fantasy, debut authors, you name it, Book of the Month has it. But if for some reason you're not feeling that month's selections, you certainly can go ahead and skip that month completely risk-free. You won't be charged. Book of the Month so kindly sent me this month's selections to share with you all. So these are the December books, and let me say, I feel like I would have been ordering like at least 3 of these for myself this month because the December selections didn't come to play. These sound so good. Without a doubt, my choice this month would have been A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This is a debut book and it's also an early release title, and it's a thriller about this serial killer who emerges with an eerily familiar pattern, and it's also about a woman who now is questioning if she's really left her past in the past. But there are 2 other selections this month that I think I would have stepped outside of my thriller comfort zone a little bit just to go ahead and get. So first is A History of Wild Places. This book is magical realism, and it does have a mystery component because it's about this woman who has gone missing who was last seen going into the town's mysterious forest. I definitely would have also added The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox to my box. I don't think I mentioned it, but adding books onto your monthly selections, that's another perk Book of the Month offers. Anyway, this is a book about twin sisters who swap places right before Christmas, and it sounds really cute, really festive. Other selections this month include Olga Dies Dreaming, a contemporary fiction book, and Somebody's Daughter, a memoir. We also have a recent add-on selection called The Anthropocene Reviewed, which is a collection of essays by John Green. So again, the link is in my description box. If you're interested in joining Book of the Month today, go ahead and click that link, but just don't forget to use code JOLLY to get your first book for only $5. This would make an excellent holiday gift for a reader in your life. Just saying. Thanks so much, Book of the Month. I love you. Okay, on to the books that I read in November. I know I already told you that I read 11 this month, but I did not read 11 books from start to finish. I am in the crunch zone, I'm in crunch time. It is crunch time in the Johnson apartment hold, and I'm trying to hit 100 books before the end of the year. I'm going back to all of the books that I previously started this year but didn't finish, and I'm just knocking them out left and right. So that's the case with a lot of these books. I don't know why I feel like I just needed to make a disclaimer. Like, I didn't sit down and read 11 books this month. I had already started a bunch of them. My stats were kind of all over the place this month, ranging from 2.5 stars to 1 5-star read. I feel like I had a very blah reading month. I will say December already off to a better start. I do have one major favorite on this list, which is something to look forward to. But I don't know about the rest. I feel like this is going to be a really interesting video. Let's start though with my least favorite book of the month, unfortunately, which was The Collective by Allison Galen. Above all else, The Collective is a revenge story, which is why I am so disappointed that I didn't like this book more than I did. I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. It did not hit really any of the marks that I wanted it to hit. Unfortunately, I just thought this was a very strange book. This story is about Camille Gardner, and Camille cannot get over the death of her daughter. Understandably so. She is still mourning her, and she still wants revenge on who she thinks was responsible for her daughter's death. Long story short, Camille gets drawn into the dark web and into this group of mothers who are in similar situations to Camille. So she really wants to get revenge on this young man who she thinks is responsible. She's now a part of a group who's going to make that happen. I know that I'm still making it sound like really good and really juicy, but there was something just not satisfying about literally any of the revenge in this book. I really wanted that good for her moment, and I don't know if that ever came. There is a really solid ending going on here. Like, I almost want to say that this book is worth the read just for those last 15 to 20 pages. Something happened that I really didn't see coming that just kind of flipped the entire story on its head. I really appreciate when an author can do that to me, but at the same time, I just didn't find anything redeemable about Camille. I was really looking for that morally gray. Is she good? Like, should I be pulling for her? I wanted to be pulling for her despite what she was a part of and what she was doing, and I just couldn't do it. Also, there's a super unnecessary and annoying and distracting plot line going on here that has to deal with Bachelor Nation. I used to be such a fan of the Bachelor franchise, you know, like Bachelor, Bachelorette, but for the past few seasons, like, I can't even flip it on anymore. I can't do it to myself anymore. And there is a huge plot line where they start talking about The Bachelor and have all these code words, and I wouldn't even have had so much of a problem with it, but they're literally referencing actual contestants from the show and plot lines from that show from Peter's season. Maybe if you like are not familiar with it, you won't notice it at all and it'll be fine, but I was so embarrassed while I was reading it. I don't know, I can't explain it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Next is The Wolf Wants In by Laura McHugh. This one is just my own fault. I don't even know, I don't remember how I got this recommendation. I really want to say I just saw this book somewhere, read the inside flap, and thought it was something that I was really going to enjoy. Sadly, this was another 2.5 star book this month, but after this one, we're moving on to the 3s. So The Collective and The Wolf Wants In were my 2 least favorite books this month. This book has 2 different female perspectives going on, Sadie and Henley. Sadie is a young woman whose brother has recently died, and Henley is a young 18-year-old girl who is trying to escape her town. So both of these women live in a town that has just been completely ravaged by the opioid crisis and epidemic, and I think that this book has a lot to say about this ongoing crisis in America and in small towns in particular. Something about this plot though felt a little bit worn out to me. So obviously we've got some people dying in the town, and then we have the mystery of, are these people really overdosing, or are there murders going on? Why are there bones in the woods? All of those are the talking points that really sold me on The Wolf Wants In. But at the end of the day, especially when you've got 2 different points of view, I feel like they've got to be woven together a little bit more seamlessly. I feel like the connections between the 2 perspectives were loose, which I can appreciate, but if you are an author and you make that choice to have multiple narrators, you've got to do a little bit more to distinguish them apart from one another. I think I would have enjoyed this much better if we were just following different characters in 3rd person rather than have like be in the minds of 2 different women just like unpacking these same events just from different perspectives. I hope that makes sense. Ultimately, this was just another one that let me down. I think my hopes were probably too high going in, just my own fault. But there was just nothing that really grabbed me. I actually kind of forgot that I read this month. Now, from here on out, I liked the books, okay? So even if it's a 3-star read, I liked the rest of these books and I recommend the rest of these books. The next book I read last month was called The Ballad of Black Tom. This was the shortest book I read last month, and this was so far outside of my comfort zone. I went into it thinking it was just going to be a short horror story. Actually, it was kind of teetering the line between being like horror and fantasy. So if that is your thing, I think you're really gonna like this book. I see why it's critically acclaimed. I just think I wasn't the perfect, like, spot on audience for it because of the magic that was going on. This book is about a man named Tom. Well, I can't tell you too much about it because it's so short, but basically he makes this mysterious delivery to a sorceress, and then it's all taking place in New York, by the way. Very vivid New York setting going on. But once he makes this delivery to a magic lady, things just open up into getting crazy. As I was reading, I was like, when is this horror gonna come into play? Oh, it comes into play. We get pretty graphic, pretty gory by the end of the story, and I think it was a really fun time. I don't think it's one that's gonna really stand out in my mind to recommend for years to come, but I don't feel like my time was wasted by any means, and I really enjoyed the audiobook. This was another one that I listened to on audio this month. The next 3-star read I had last month was called 5 Total Strangers. I was really hesitant going into this book because I thought it was going to be a ripoff of No Exit by Taylor Adams, which is one of my favorite wintry, snowy thrillers of all time, but Five Total Strangers was pretty good. It is a young adult thriller. Did y'all hear that? It's storming outside. That's why the lighting keeps changing and I look like a ghosty. I can't get it right. I don't think you care though. Do you care? Hope not. Five Total Strangers is about what the title suggests. It's a group of 5 strangers who all meet while they're trying to travel home or travel somewhere. And because of extenuating circumstances and the weather outside, they're all kind of forced together into a vehicle. But then, once they're in that vehicle trying to go home, different forces try to keep them from getting to their destinations. I don't know why I'm being vague. It's not a secret. There's a blizzard, snow going on, so they're trying to get through like the physical elements, but also, is somebody kind of chasing them? Is somebody following them? Also, does everyone in this group have good intentions? Is everyone who they say they are? I really enjoyed this for it to be young adult, and especially because I kind of had heard that not too many people have enjoyed this one. So if you're looking for a wintry thriller and you've not tried this one yet, it is a really easy and fun read. Next is a big one, you guys. It's Survive the Night by Riley Sager. I finally finished it up and I gave it 3 stars because I genuinely do not know what my feelings are about this book. There was so much that I really liked, but there was so much more that I just wanted more from Sager. I know what he can do, and he did not deliver the way I wanted him to with Survive the Night. I'm so sorry, Riley. There's no chance you're watching this, but you're one of my favorite authors ever. I'm so sorry. I look like a little green spaceman. This is probably the last time I'm ever gonna try to explain the plot of Survive the Night to you, so if you've heard me before, just bear with me. It's only gonna take a second here. Survive the Night is a thriller book, and it starts out on a college campus. There's this young woman whose roommate has recently been brutally murdered by someone known as the campus killer. But you know what? For whatever reason, this college student decides she's gotta get home. She signs up for a rideshare board and she goes and gets in a car with a man that she's never met before. She doesn't know who he is. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you home. I'm going that way too. So once they get in the car together, she quickly starts thinking, oh my gosh, did I get into the car with the campus killer? So from right there, from very early on, the reader understands that this book is gonna be one of 2 things. Either this guy she's gotten into the car with is the campus killer, or he's not. And I know that sounds like a really broad, sweeping statement, but for some reason, knowing that those are my options right up front, like either this guy is the campus killer or he's not, that set the stakes at a really weird point for me. Like, are they high? Yes, because our main character could get murdered at any time, but also, I just felt like there was nothing that could come from left field. I already knew like what I was set up to believe. So then from there on out, anytime anything happened in the book, I was like, yeah, checks out. Yeah, okay, whatever. So every twist and turn that I made, I just felt like I wasn't making any progress towards feeling any certain type of way about this book. I just was kind of there for the ride, which is okay, but it wasn't amazing. That's why I settled on 3 stars for Survive the Night. Okay, getting into some 3.5 star reads now. I actually really liked Come Closer by Sarah Grant. This was a horror short story, or not short story, I'm sorry, I keep saying that. It's like a novella. It wasn't super short though. This took me a little while to read on the ebook. And the premise for this one is really simple. It's just about a woman who may or may not be possessed, and everything that she's doing in her life as things start to fall apart, and like the way that she like pushes people away, the way that she sees everything she's been working toward just kind of slip out of her grasp. And because of that, I felt a real emotional connection to this main character. The reason this isn't rated any higher for me is just like there was so much going on in the book that I was rolling my eyes at. I like it when a book can be kind of cringy and campy like that, but only if it's not taking itself too seriously. And I could not tell with this author. I couldn't tell if the book knew that it was being really campy because we had so much going on in the book that was really serious and emotional, so I felt like the tone just was all over the place then. There are definitely some really disturbing moments in this book, some graphic moments too, some things like that I definitely still have in my mind, some scenes that I really liked, but this author really did take what I've been calling the Jaws approach, where you know how in Jaws the shark is scarier because you don't see the shark, and then once you see it you're kind of like, okay. There would be these brutal attacks going on in this book, but we as readers weren't getting to see the gruesome details. We would just get to read about it on the newspaper or like hear the main character talking about, yeah, I heard there was this crazy attack at the gas station. I wanted to read about some people getting murdered. Sometimes less is more, but I just wanted a little bit more action since the story was so short. Okay, moving on. Now we have Before She Knew Him by Peter Swanson. Peter Swanson wrote The Kind Worth Killing, which is one of my favorite books of the year so far, but let me see. I have to admit, I want you to take everything that I say in this review with a little grain of salt because I don't feel comfortable commenting on like what the mental health representation is in this book. I feel like there were definitely some mental health twists that the plot relied on, and I understand that sometimes like those are warranted and they make sense and it's like discussed in a healthy and correct way, but I honestly have no idea with Before She Knew Him, and I finished this relatively recently, and just full transparency, I haven't researched it before this video. I don't really know what to say like in that regard, so just keep that in mind going in. But with that being said, let me tell you what the book's about. Before She Knew Him is a book about this young couple. They move into a new neighborhood, and the wife of this couple soon believes that one of their new neighbors is responsible for a murder of this young guy who used to live in their old neighborhood. This neighbor's name is Hen, and she just becomes really paranoid that she's living next to a murderer. And she sets out to try to prove that this is the case. So this is all sounding just fine and dandy until we start to get hints that Hen might have struggled with mental illness in the past, and that she might actually be going through what is referred to in the book as, I think it's like a psychotic break. I don't know anything scientifically about what all that entails, but that's what's going on in this book. So just on the surface, I was fine with that plot. I think that things played out in a pretty unpredictable way. I really couldn't see where this book was going at any point in time. But I also just want to say, like, I didn't attach myself to any of the characters like I did with The Kind Worth Killing. In The Kind Worth Killing, I feel like my jaw was on the floor at every single chapter end, and I feel like I maybe only got one of those moments here. Again, because I'm not sure about the mental health rep, I'm not sure like how to recommend it, but just letting you know I did settle on 3.5 stars. The last 3.5 star read that I had this month was The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook. This is my first book by C.J. Cook, and I definitely want to read more from her in the future. I read this with my friend Savannah for her book club. It's called the Lights Out Book Club. I'll link to the live show in the description in case you've read this book or you're interested in reading it and you want to go watch it. It does have some spoilers, but we will warn you beforehand. This book is so far outside of my comfort zone, and yet I had a pretty good time reading it. This book has two different timelines. One is in the past, and we're on this remote Scottish island, so I immediately loved the vibes, loved the setting. And then the other timeline is going on in the present day. So in the past, we're following this young family. It's a mother and I want to say her like 4 young-ish daughters. They've moved out to this island, and things just get weird and mysterious. We're just gonna keep it at that. We'll say that some of the daughters went missing, okay? In the present day, we're following one of the daughters who did not go missing, and she is soon notified that one of her sisters from all these years ago has been found. So she's so excited. She goes to the hospital to pick up her sister, but her sister is the same age that she was when she disappeared. Is it her sister? That's what you spend the book trying to figure out. So now you can kind of see why I'm saying that was really super far outside of my comfort zone, but I'm really glad I read it because this was some of the best and most atmospheric writing that I have ever read. I feel like it was perfect for the fall time or early winter even. I feel like we've got some great descriptions of like fog creeping over the grass going into the lighthouse and stuff like that on the water. I think I use the word atmospheric to describe a lot of my reads, but it is the best description I can think of to talk about the Lighthouse Witches. The only reason it wasn't 4 stars was, again, I think it's probably not super fair because I'm not the perfect audience for this book, but things got really confusing for me because of the turn that the genre took by the end. I had no idea what was going on. I was just holding on for dear life, and because I got confused at the end, I wasn't sure if the payoffs were like good. The buildup was superb, but I just got confused at the end, and I had to, like, I don't know, I just feel like I didn't have that satisfied moment. I now know what happened and all, but while I was reading, I never had that, oh yes! I'm so sorry. This is derailing. Next, we have my only 4-star read for the month. It is Dreams of Falling by Karen White. I have been straight up complaining about this book for months, maybe even a year now. My mom recommended this book for me. She got it for me and everything. It is one of her favorite books of all time by one of her favorite authors of all time. I've read Karen White before. I think she's such a queen. I really liked The Night the Lights Went Out. But Dreams of Falling was just really interesting because I know a good book when I see it. And even when I don't love it, I can appreciate it. So Karen White, I really want to say, is just one of the best authors I've ever read. She has a stunning writing style. It is so beautiful, and it always puts you in the setting. I feel like she just writes South Carolina and Southern women so well. I feel like the characters are so relatable, and she always writes characters where you're like, I know that girl. I know not just like you feel like you know the character. She's writing people that you literally know in your everyday life. This book is about a young woman who swore she was never gonna return to her hometown until her mother is in an accident and gets stuck in a coma, so she does have to return, and she's reunited with her mom's friends who basically raised her. So that's one storyline. We're getting that. We're also getting a perspective from the said mother who was in the coma. She's like floating around looking down at everybody. So we're getting some different perspective and insight from her. But what makes this story is we have a historical perspective going on, or a historical storyline, sorry about that. And it's about the mother's mother, so the woman who's in a coma, her mother, and her 2 closest friends, who are the 2 women who raised her. So remember like 10 seconds ago when I said she goes and gets with her mom's friends? She's actually like, those are kind of like grandmother figures to her. Or not her, that's someone else, but how do I explain this? I swear this is not a confusing book. I'm making it difficult. Just trust me when I say it's really good. It's filled with drama. If you like Southern extravagance and just things being over the top dramatic, steal your man, snatch your pearls, stuff like going on like that, it was fun. But there were just a lot of parts in this book that I thought were too slow. I really do think this book is simply too long, and I think it's overwritten. I think that Karen White gives wonderful descriptions. Obviously, it makes you feel like you are in her book, but sometimes I think it can be too much. In hardback with like pretty little words, this is over 400 pages. Why couldn't we have capped it at 350, 360 even? I think that Dreams of Falling was just way too long for what it was. And also, I just didn't really care about the storyline going on in the present day at all. I really feel like what we had going on in the past was enough to make its own standalone thing. Every time that I got pulled away from it, I was annoyed and I put the book down, and that's why it took me like a year to read it. And that's the review for Dreams of Falling. I am so proud that I finally knocked it out. All right, we're moving into my favorite 2 books of the month. One of them is so surprising to me. This is a 4.5-star book if I've ever read one. It is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the 2nd book in a Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and this is one of the only times where I think that I've actually rated the sequel to a book higher than the first book in the series. I absolutely had an amazing time with this reading experience. So just in case you didn't know, the first book in this series, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, is about this high school senior. Her name is Pip, and she starts this senior capstone project where she's gonna try to solve a cold case that has been really prominent in the town and at the high school where she attends school. So in that first book, Pip starts this true crime podcast where she's trying to solve the crime. And then in this book, I'm not going to tell you like what happens in that book, but this is just a continuation of the story. And something happens where Pip decides to continue her podcast. The mixed media in this book is just insane. Here we have like when you see a voice recording or something, it'll show you on the page. Also, if something is like written in a journal or torn, oh my gosh, torn out of something, it'll show you like those look like little stickers that have been torn out. Well, that was just a chapter thing, but you know what I mean. There's a lot visually going on in this book that's so amazing, but at the same time, y'all, the audiobook is like a full cast audiobook, and it is so well narrated. When you hear people on the phone will ring and then they sound muffled like hello, like they're on the phone. I should be a voice actor, right? Hello? For real, that sounded like Bane from Batman. I'm Bane. Hello, Batman. Probably one of my favorite young adult books of all time. Really loved this sequel. Okay, here we go. My favorite book of the month, and one of my favorite books so far this year, if not my favorite. Like I know it sounds dramatic, but this one might be my favorite book of the year. It's The Plot by Jean Hop Korelitz. Y'all, this book blew my mind, and I'm so sorry. I apologize to everybody, just everybody in general, because I had this whole 5-star predictions reading vlog plan where like y'all voted on some books and I was gonna read them. I didn't do it. I'm so sorry, but I did read this book. It was a 5-star prediction. I knew I was gonna love it, and it's one of the best books I've ever read. This book is a thriller, but it also has that literary kind of contemporary feel. It's a mystery kind of, but it's a thriller, but it's got a lot of slower parts. So don't go into this one thinking it's going to be super fast-paced action on every page. This is very much a slow burn. Oh my gosh, but it was so good. In this book, readers are following Jacob Finch Bonner, who is an author. He was pretty successful with his first book, and then he also had a follow-up book that did okay. I mean, it was published, but then his third and fourth books just didn't even get picked up at all. So just to give you a little taste of what this guy's like, I just told you his name is Jacob Finch Bonner. Finch is not even his name. He just kind of gave himself that name, like from Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, so just to start things out, just in how this guy's talking about himself and how he's like this awesome writer, and his third and fourth books were good, but just no one understands. We're getting a very pretentious feel from this guy. But there's something about him that I don't want to call it endearing, but I didn't mind. Like, I didn't hate this guy. I wanted to see what was gonna happen. When the book starts, he's working at this second or even third-rate MFA program as a creative writing instructor. So on his first day of class, to eat up time, this teacher always is like, so what are you hoping to get out of this class? Right? That's a generic first day of school type question. So it gets to this one guy who's like, I don't think that you can really teach writing. I think you're either a good writer or you're not a good writer. And also, none of that even matters to me because I have the best idea for a plot that anyone has ever heard of. So, not that I'm not a good writer, because I am, but I don't even need to be, because even the worst writer cannot mess up a good plot. Boom, mic drop, right? So this cuts the teacher really deep because he is a super talented writer, but he feels like the reason that his third and fourth books did not do well were because he had no ideas, and he was really just writing these books to try to bring in money or to check boxes. He didn't really have any great ideas. So pause there and fast forward into the future where the teacher is finding out that this former student has died, and by all accounts, he cannot find where this book that this kid had an amazing plot for. I forgot to tell you, but the kid tells the teacher what this plot is going to be. So go back to the future now. This book has never been written, and the teacher decides to steal it, and he becomes wildly successful. It's like one of the most popular books of all time, but somebody knows that it was not this teacher's story to tell. They know that it was not this teacher's plot and that he stole it from this student that he had. The ride that this book took me on was absolutely incredible. Not only was this so well written, but just the entire concept of this book was so mind-blowing to me. I love books about writers. I love books within books. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is we are reading this book, which is called Crib. That's the author that this book has pawned off as his own. Did you hear that, guys? This is the author that book pawned off as his own. Just wanted to make sure that was very clear to everybody. That book wrote that author. What in the world? Who do you think you are? Or I mean, I guess it is. I mean, he wrote the book. He just didn't have the idea for it anyway. We're reading that book along with actually reading this book. So at first I was really mad, like, oh my gosh, are they gonna do the thing where they say, oh, it's the best plot in the world, but we don't get to know what it is? No, we get to read this book. Not all of it, but excerpts from it, and enough excerpts to be able to follow what the book is. I've never read anything like it. It was so creative, and I just absolutely recommend it to anybody who thinks this sounds like a good idea. I feel like the second that this was pitched to me, I knew it was going to be a new favorite for me, and I was not wrong. Really, really highly recommend the plot. Like, please, I want to like buy one for you right now and make you read it, or like send you my copy. I can't recommend it enough. I've got like pins and needles all in my cheeks from smiling so much talking about it. So please go out and check this one out. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, just want to thank you so much as always for watching. Click the link in my description box to find that book of the month link. Use code JOLLY to get your first book for $5. Thanks so much again for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.